As far as survival crafting games go, this game's pretty good. The aptly named Winter Survival is a survival crafting title set in a snow-covered, wolf-infested wasteland that features a psychological horror twist, to which your character slowly loses his mind as he battles hungry bears, relentless wolf packs, hypothermia, thirst, hunger, and freezing temperatures. It's very hardcore. Neglecting just one of your character's status effects means certain death, so you have to constantly patch your torn clothes, dry them on a drying line, cook foods on a fire, sleep well, and make bowls and cups to heat cold water in, which is actually a very cool mechanic. You bring some water from a stream in a canteen and heat it up in a bowl. If you don't, your temperature will drop and you'll die from hypothermia. If you heat up a can of food and leave it in your backpack for too long, it'll just go cold again. All of this is somehow fun and not tedious at all. The game doesn't force you into the unrealistic loop that some other games do, where you cook foods for an hour, then fill your backpack with warm food and walk around with it forever. No, you have to always remember to return to your home to rest and replenish your stocks, preferably before sunset, as nights are dangerous. In other survival games, you come home when your backpack is full or because you forgot to take some resource. Here, you do it because you have to. And this relationship with your home is well crafted and not too tedious. If we take Green Hell as an example, where having a proper home with walls and other building pieces is not a requirement at all, but is more like a soul-crushing challenge where you have to endlessly carry heavy logs or mud bricks to build anything, then Winter Survival has a more forgiving base building experience, where if you're playing in story mode, you get your first home in a very good location with good access to both story areas and resources, and then another one further afield as part of the story, or tutorial on building a home if you will. Winter Survival is like Green Hell, but polar opposite. Apart from Green Hell, you can't help but compare the game to The Long Dark as well, but as you continue along, the game takes some unexpected turns and becomes Firewatch in the snow, with the walkie-talkie and your mind playing tricks on you.
Hello? Mike? Is that you?
I won't spoil it for you, but if you loved Firewatch and Green Hell or The Long Dark, this is definitely a game you'll enjoy. I played the game for the story and survival aspects, not as much for base building, and it delivers in both those areas. I particularly liked how your character battles psychological aspects of survival in the winter wilderness with the game's innovative adaptation system. As a sort of a negative skill tree where you get to choose your debuff, as trauma builds up from prolonged exposure to hunger, thirst, cold, darkness, and danger, it begins to visibly affect your abilities, like your vision going occasionally blurry when you activate survival instinct, or after being hungry for too long, getting hallucinations of prey animals. And these debuffs take a long time to go away unless you complete some challenge to address your trauma. The struggle of managing both your physical needs and mental health adds a layer of complexity that most survival games don't explore. It makes every decision from when to rest to how to face a predator feel more intense and meaningful, and I'm here for it. As concerns exploration and crafting in general, those are also very well thought through. It's pretty exciting to venture out and gather materials to bring home and make something new. And every such trip feels important, because you can easily die out there just like in real life. Fall from a ledge, sprain an ankle, then get attacked by an opportunistic pack of wolves. Or underestimate the weather and it's much colder than you expected, so you need to make fire to warm yourself up, but there is nothing to start a fire with. There are some exciting points of interest scattered across the map. I never found them to be repetitive or boring. Even further, they combine with your increasingly frequent hallucinations to create a trippy, immersive experience. The only beef I have with the exploration and looting system is that there's just too many cogs and neat little chests lying around, and all the hidden chests that you can dig out with a shovel, they're not worth the effort of searching for, because they all have exactly the same things as every cave and shack. Every cave and shack in this game will have barrels, cogs and shafts, and even wolf dens will be brimming with batteries, lockpicks and metal scraps. Like, how did they all end up in a wolf's den? Ridiculous, though I understand it's a way to add an endless source of these materials to prevent you running out of them after you've looted everything. But once you've exhausted all that out in the world, you can do magnet fishing to find some more nails and cogs, so maybe introducing the fishing earlier would have helped to keep it more realistic. Still, you don't even need any metal parts, cogs and shafts until you get a trolley car, which is pretty far into the game, and even then you don't really have access to them when you need them. so collecting and bringing them all to your home is mostly a pointless exercise. There were other moments that broke the immersion for me, for example finding metal boxes in the middle of nowhere to help you climb somewhere, or the fact that you can see things like some sort of Witcher without it being explained to you. Or how potatoes and carrots can be found on farm plots and then respawn after a while, in freezing temperatures. Furthermore, when you light up a fire it tells you it'll burn for 5 minutes, but then you go to sleep for 2 hours and wake up to a lit fireplace. Alright, I understand why, but can we have some consistency here? And don't get me started on just waltzing into a den of sleeping wolves and just passing by. But then again, if you don't dwell too much on these things and just play the game, you'll have a good time. This game doesn't have the budgets of Rockstar, so cut it some slack. Of course there will be some imperfect things here and there, but as a whole it's a great package of hardcore survival, story and some base building, and if you liked Green Hell and Firewatch, or if you've finished The Long Dark and want something new in the winter setting, you'll definitely enjoy this one. With all that said, how come the game has such low review scores? Well, I wanted to figure it out, so I copied all the negative reviews from Steam and asked ChatGPT to summarize the most common complaints, so let me quickly go through them. The most frequent complaint is bugs and crashes, but I have not experienced any crashes or freezing or falling through terrain. I have never had a save break or progress get wiped. I'm sure that those were early access issues that have since been fixed. The combat system does indeed feel clunky, but considering that you don't really have to fight that much in this game, I give it a pass on this one. I don't think you'd be expecting to fight off 100 wolves in real life anyway. Adaptation system is indeed poorly explained. I didn't immediately grasp that when you level up you don't get to choose a perk or anything, and you don't even get a prompt saying that you learned something new. The only choice you have is on the psychological effect your traumas have on you. I don't agree that the adaptation system doesn't belong in a survival game. I've already said that I think it fits in perfectly with the setting. I do however agree that locking crafting recipes behind parts of the story is poor taste. I didn't have to reach level 16 to get a spear in story mode, but I did have to reach a part of the story that unlocks it, and that didn't make much sense to me because surely you don't need some advanced sharpening technique only known to experienced survivalists to sharpen a piece of wood. Another example is how the game tells you to gather blueberries and bait an injured deer into a trap so that you can get deer skin, but like, at that point I already had better wolf and boar skins, I really had no interest in learning how to hunt a deer. Regarding the animal density, I felt the same way about wolves before I learned to handle them. Later in the game I did not feel like there were too many of them at all. Crafting being unintuitive, yes, that's true, it's hard to use the crafting menu and to know when something will be unlocked and why it's not yet, and yes, like I said, not being able to craft essential items early is a major pain. Yes, there's no ability to move place structures and base building is indeed limited. I did not play on controller so I can't speak to this, but the interactions aren't clunky. Yes, they take a bit, but it's far from the worst implementation I've seen in such a game. No map system is true, but there are items in the story that give you decent enough maps to figure it out. Like in other games, markers are meant to fill the gap. Now, I don't agree with the story mode being too short. Even if you're playing on the easiest difficulty, I cannot see how you can finish this faster than, 10 hours maybe? I understand this is an early access critique, but just for reference, I'm playing on hardest difficulty like it's meant to be played, and I'm about to finish the story after playing for 18 hours. Plus there are other modes as well that I still want to explore. Yes, not all objectives are clear on what you should do, that's true. There are times when it's hard to understand what you're supposed to do, but I only resorted to googling once when I was doing the In Distress side quest. Furthermore, I saw how quickly the devs come to help you get unstuck on Steam forums if you just ask. Story progression bugs I didn't encounter, or they were unnoticeable. Now regarding performance, I played with settings cranked to the max and never experienced any stuttering, crashes, freezes or frame drops. I did hear my GPU calling ATC sometimes to request clearance for departure, even after setting an FPS limit, but it didn't bother me too much. And I'm not saying good things about the game just to be a contrarian. I don't know if it's just a happy coincidence that it ran well on my machine or if the devs fixed the game, but my experience was infinitely better than what all those reviewers mentioned. If I had to rate the gameplay, I'd give it a 7.5. Very well worth your time if you like survival games, and possibly even more so if you like a good story. If you're a survivalist looking for your next game, check out my other video here, and if you're not, go ahead and enjoy any of these.